Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you on today's webinar. My name is Peter Sima. I will present to you a presentation about combining Google Ads with commercial Google Ads campaigns. That will be the topic of today's webinar. This webinar will take approximately 1 hour, 15 minutes. Might be a little bit more, a little bit less. The webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be either available on this Crowdcast link. So if you use this link after the webinar is over, you will be able to see the recording right away. And within the next few days, we'll also upload the webinar to our YouTube channel. So if you go to our website, which is aboutxdigital.com, on the very bottom, there's a link to our YouTube channel, and the recording of this webinar will be also available there. I saw some familiar names in the audience. So those of you who we work with or who have we worked with before in the past, I'd like to welcome you. And also I saw some new names. So hopefully this will be this will bring you a lot of added value. If you have any questions at any point of time, on the right hand side, there's a menu, and the very first icon with a little chat icon. That's a place where you can ask your questions. We'll address those questions towards the end of the webinar. And obviously, if you end up having some questions after the webinar is over, my email address will be mentioned on the very last slide, and I will be happy to answer your questions offline via email. All right, let's get in. So today we will talk about a few different things. We'll first talk about Google Ads, which most of you are probably familiar with, but we'll look at it from a little bit different angle. So we'll not look at what this is, etc., but we'll look at the benefits and limitations when compared with the Google Ads, commercial Google Ads, right? That will be the first part of the presentation. Then we'll take a look at the Google Ads auction, how the auction works, what are the important factors that may influence your position within the Google Ads auction. Then we'll take a look at commercial Google Ads, what they are, how they work, etc. And then towards the end, we'll show you tips and strategies on how to combine Google Ads with commercial Google Ads efficiently, which means in a way that minimizes your cost per conversion at the end of the day. We'll also have a short presentation or account demo, if you will. So I will take you to an account where we'll show you how to select keywords that will be good candidates to move from a grant account to commercial account. And then we'll briefly touch base on conversion tracking. This is a broad and technical topic. We have a separate Google Analytics webinar just on this one topic. So if you're interested in learning more about conversion tracking, my recommendation is to go to our video about Google Analytics. But it's important here as well. So we'll just give you a brief overview of what this is and how this works. And then at the very end, we'll have a short case study with one of our clients that combines Google Ads with commercial Google Ads accounts. Here's my short intro. I'm Peter Sima. I'm a founder and consultant at About Digital. Besides that, I'm also a Google trainer for nonprofits. I've been working in strategic marketing since about 2010, and specifically focusing on against accounts since 2013. All right, let's jump straight in. So what are the benefits of Google Ads? Again, those of you who have an account or who have had it for a while, you probably know for yourself. Generally speaking, these are the main benefits that that our clients, sense when using Google Ads accounts. Before I get into benefits, again, just a very short intro for those of you who are not familiar with the program. And Google Ads is obviously a grant program from Google, where Google gives you as a nonprofit an advertising credit worth roughly $10,000 per month. I say roughly because it's a daily budget of $329. So depending on how long the month is, the total amount also varies a bit. And this grant is not limited by time, and it's not limited by the total amount. So once you get approved, you'll keep getting this grant. What else? I mean, you're free to choose the geo targeting as well as the language targeting. We have clients that have multilingual campaigns, so that's great for international organizations. And obviously, there are compliance requirements in the program, and these requirements need to be met every month for you to stay in the program. Again, we'll not talk about this today because we have another webinar about Google Ads where we specifically talk about these compliance requirements. We also list them on our website if you're interested. Here's the ad format. Within Google AdSense accounts for a very long time, the only ad format available has been search ads, which look like this. Last year, Google added a new format called Performance Max. Performance Max in Google AdSense accounts can also serve outside of Google Search, and that is within Google Maps. Okay, so there's PMax that can serve within Google Search and Google Maps. All other campaign formats within AdSense accounts can only serve as text ads within Google Search results. Um, Now, what are the benefits? All right, so obviously the biggest benefit of the program is that you do not need to pay the advertising budget, right? You have a daily budget of $329, which you can use if your campaigns work very well and if they use the full budget, let's say, at 2 or 3 p.m. What happens is that Google basically stops serving your ads until midnight, and then on midnight you get another $329. There's no billing info, there's no payment information within the Google AdSense account, so it's technically not even possible for Google to charge you anything, okay, which is great. Obviously, if you end up working with a professional, such as our agency or any other consultant, they charge fee for their time that they need to spend on setting up and managing your campaigns. But that is the only fee that you pay. The media budget, which is typically the larger part of the fee that you pay in a standard commercial cooperation, that larger part goes away completely because it's covered by the grant. That's the single biggest benefit of the program. The next big benefit, in our opinion, is that Google AdSense can become a steady source of new visitors to your website, and also a steady source of conversions. And we, oftentimes, actually in most of the Google AdSense accounts that we manage, when we look into Google Analytics and we analyze, what's the traffic generated by Google AdSense campaigns, we always see or often see that the percentage of new visitors is very high, which means that Google AdSense is good at driving new traffic, driving people who've never visited your website before, which might be great for brand awareness, which might be great for brand building, for spreading your cause, in new communities, things like that. Widgets are important. Conversions are more important because conversions are valuable actions that your visitors can complete on your website. Those could be, for instance, event registrations, donations, volunteering form submissions, etc. And again, conversions should be set up, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you can see exactly how these people, what did they do on the website, how many of them converted, so you can easily calculate the value of Google AdSense campaigns for your organization. It's a stable source of traffic. Coming back to what I said in the beginning, the grant is not limited by time and it's not limited by the total amount. So once you get in, once you configure this, once it ramps up, the ramp up time is typically between 2 to 3 months because you need to accumulate a certain amount of data and the bidding algorithms need to learn based on the data. But afterwards, this can really run, for a long period of time. We have clients that got it in 2004, so for more than 22 years they've been getting this grant. So this is really a long-term thing, and that's how you should look at it. And it's a good space for experimenting, right? So obviously you can run experiments also in commercial account, but if you do so, you pay for the media budget, right? And if the experiment doesn't go well, let's say you try a new ad copy, or you try a different landing page, or you try a different set of keywords, whatever the experiment is about, if it doesn't go well, you need to pay for it. You need to pay for it. There might be financial implications. There might be loss, and because of that, nonprofits with smaller budgets are typically cautious or even scared of making any larger scale experiments in commercial accounts. In grant accounts, there's no such risk, right? The grant is here. Many organizations do not use the full grant, so they do not even need to cannibalize their existing campaigns. They can just use the unused grant to run those experiments, which is great. You can test new ideas, you can test new keywords. If you have conversion tracking in place, you can measure the impact and see if it works well or not. And if it doesn't cost you much. It costs you time, obviously, but that's about it. Then it's a good space for learning, right? Again, for maybe those of you who are not familiar with commercial accounts, or not familiar with Google Ads at all, obviously making mistakes in a commercial account might be costly. Learning in a commercial account might be costly, but learning in a grant account, much easier, right? The interface itself is exactly the same in grant and commercial accounts. So whatever you learn, whatever you try in a grant account can be relatively easily transferable to the commercial account. There's no financial risk. There's a lot of educational resources published either by Google or published by us or other consultants out there. So there's a lot of sources, and you can learn at your own pace. You can experiment and get expertise in Google Ads. And last but not least, a big benefit of Google Ads that is sort of an indirect benefit that many people do not, you know, um, see on the first glance, and that's an opportunity to save financial resources. And that's what we'll talk about today at a little bit more a little bit more deeper a level, because oftentimes, if an organization runs a commercial account and then they get approved for ad grants, usually there's a space to move some of those keywords, some of those campaigns from the commercial account into the grant account, which saves them financial resources, obviously. And they can also enhance, for instance, retargeting performance of commercial campaigns. Because when you launch grant campaigns, they'll drive traffic to your website, your retargeting audiences will grow in size, and then you can use these audiences in a commercial account. And typically, when you use retargeting campaigns, the ROI, the return on investment in such campaigns, is much higher compared to prospecting campaigns that go after new audiences. Because again, if somebody has been on your website before, and it doesn't matter how he or she's landed on the website, but if that person's visited your website before, the likelihood that the conversion will happen on the second or third visit is much higher compared to a likelihood that that person converts on the very first visit. All right. So also, if you're on grant campaigns, it can help you build up those retargeting audiences that are then very efficient when run in commercial accounts. And last but not least, it may help you build your brand, build your brand awareness, and then you get more traffic via organic channels. So, people finding you within non-paid Google search results. And again, when your brand is more recognizable, more people search for your brand, and brand traffic is cheap and converts very well. So again, if you run brand campaign in a commercial account, and you boost your brand awareness via grant campaigns, you get more brand traffic on the commercial side, and that typically also translates into more conversions, right? So ad grants doesn't just bring you that, you know, immediate traffic, but it can also make those other advertising channels cheaper. All right. Um, what are the limitations? And again, those of you who have Google AdGrants accounts, you might have experienced some of these yourself. From our perspective and perspective of our clients, probably the biggest limitation, or the biggest set of limitations actually, is this one, which is program requirements. What I mean by that, these are rules. There's about 10 rules within the Google AdGrants program, and these rules are related to how the campaigns need to be set up, how they need to be structured, and what their minimum performance should be. So for instance, Google says that your minimum click-through rate needs to be at least 5% during a calendar month. Or Google says that you need to track at least one conversion action per month. Or Google says that you need to have at least 2 ad groups in every campaign, etc., etc. So there are, rules like that, and they change here and there. I mean, they were introduced back in 2018, and ever since they've there were a few instances when they've changed. And what happens is, if your account isn't compliant, well, it can get deactivated. Right? So Google checks this on monthly basis in an automated way. And if your account isn't compliant, it may get deactivated. You'll get a notification on the top part of the account saying that your account has been deactivated for this and this reason. Luckily, you can appeal it. You can essentially ask Google to reactivate the account. You obviously need to fix the problem. And then if Google support says that the account is now compliant, then they'll reactivate it. But obviously, you will not, during that period of deactivation, you'll essentially lose the grant. You will not be able to accumulate it and you will use more later on or anything like that. So obviously, the best scenario is to avoid deactivations. Now, the second limitation is limited functionality. So what I mean by that, well, in Google AdGens accounts, I've already mentioned this at the beginning, you can only use search and PMAX campaigns. You cannot use any visual, any interactive formats like banner campaigns or YouTube campaigns or Google Shopping campaigns, or those more interactive formats that Google offers. They're just not available in Google AdGens accounts, unfortunately. Um, I've heard some rumors that some type of banner ads within YouTube might be available to ad grantees at some point, but at this point they're not. Okay, um, so yeah, that's a fairly big limitation. It's been like this from the very beginning. And also in terms of retargeting, I've already mentioned that retargeting campaigns tend to be one of the most efficient campaign formats out there. They are in a way available to ad grantees, so you can create retargeting audiences and you can use them in campaigns. But again, since you can only use search campaigns, um, retargeting search campaigns, they do not work equally well as display retargeting campaigns, because when somebody visits your website and then leaves, you should show that person banners. You should follow them with banners, and that's how you can increase visibility, and that's how you can increase chances for that person to click on the banner and come back. Doing that with search campaigns would mean that that person, after visiting a page, he or she would need to type one of your keywords in and be in the retargeting audience, and there's just not that many people doing that. So technically speaking, you can do retargeting ads, but it's very limited. All right, and then this is an important one: limited competitiveness. So what it means, and I'll speak about this a little bit later, more thoroughly. What I mean by that is that Google prioritizes commercial advertisers. Okay, period. That's how it is. The commercial advertisers take priority. They get better positions within Google search results simply because they pay to Google. Uh, you, as a nonprofit, you can also have a commercial account. Obviously, you can have two. You can have a grant account. You can have a commercial account. You cannot run grant and commercial campaigns in one account. It's a common question. You need to have two accounts, one for ad grants and one for commercial campaigns. And at this point, there are many nonprofits that have this kind of setup, and they use those commercial accounts, especially in this more exposed periods like Giving Tuesday or holiday campaigns or New Year campaigns, etc., etc. So in periods like this, when it really makes sense for them financially, they push a lot with those commercial campaigns, and that essentially limits the space for ad grantees. Why that is? That's because of how the ads auction works, and I'll explain it a little bit later. Um, Also, because of this grant auction mechanics, the cost per click prices in grant accounts are higher. Always, if you run the same keyword in grant versus commercial, the CPC price in the grant account will be multiple times higher, right? Obviously, in the grant account, it's not your money, so it doesn't hurt you in a sense. But that also means that 10,000 in a grant account versus 10,000 in commercial account is a vastly different thing, because the media price is much higher on the grant side. And last but not least, the ramp up phase is longer. So in a grant account, it might take 2 to 3 months for campaigns to fully ramp up. In a commercial account, if you have high enough bids and high enough budgets, um, maybe within a day or so, the ads get approved. And then within the next few hours, you can get thousands of clicks, which is usually impossible to achieve in grant accounts. All right, and now the auction. What it is and how it works in a nutshell is a more complex topic, but this will really give you a decent foundation of how it works. So the ad auction is basically a space where Google determines which ads serve on which position, right? And the main factors that influence your ad position are the first two, and that's your bid and that's your quality score. The bid, that's how much you're willing to pay when somebody clicks on your ad. Essentially, in Google AdGens accounts, one of the compliance requirements is that you need to use maximize conversions bidding, which means that you do not set these bids manually. but you leave it to Google, and Google sets these bids for you depending on the past conversion performance. I'm not gonna go into details, but that's bid in a nutshell. And then there's quality score, and the quality score is basically a number from 1 to 10, which is given to every keyword. And this number is an interplay of different factors, such as what was the click through rate on this keyword in the past, and also what's the relevancy. So is that keyword included in the ad? Is it included on the landing page? And there are things like that. And basically Google, depending on the relevancy, historical performance, gives each keyword a number from 1 to 10. This number can evolve over time, right? So initially you can have high quality score, but then if you change something on your website, the relevancy might drop and the quality score might also drop. And when you look at the right hand side on this picture, that's an example. So let's say there are 4 advertisers, and they all four bid on the same keyword. You can see they have different quality score. So Sam has a quality score of 10, which is the highest, and Jane has a quality score of 1 for this keyword. And they also bid different amounts, starting from $2 going all the way to $8. And then what Google does is that they multiply these two numbers, and that's the ad rank, right? So Sam, as you can see, has the highest ad rank of 20, and Jane has the smallest ad rank of 8, right? And because there are free ad positions, as you can see down there on the picture, there are free ads. Then that means that the free out of those 4 advertisers, those ones with the highest ad rank, will serve their ads in the order based on the ad rank. So Sam is first, Mary is second, and Pat is third. Jane's ad does not appear at all because there are only 3 ad positions, and her ad rank is too low. Okay, what can be done about it? Well, either bid can be improved or the quality score can be improved, right? But again, coming back to what I said about maximize conversions bidding in ad guarantee accounts, the bid is difficult to influence because you already use automated bidding, but you can focus on the quality score. You can build up your relevancy. You can play around with keywords. You can play around with your ads and your content, and things like this can boost your quality score, and that way you can also boost your ad rank. Okay, if this was not complex enough, here comes the complexity. Okay, because yes, technically speaking, this is how it works. In step number 1, you go to Google, or somebody goes to Google, types something in. In second step, Google decides based on ad rank, based on geo-targeting, language targeting, and etc. They decide, okay, this is an ad that qualifies, and then it serves the ad. But you can see here I split the auction. I split the search result on the third step into 2 frames, and on the top there's a green frame, on the bottom there's a red frame, and by that I mean that there are actually two ad auctions, and the green ad auction, the one that serves ads within the very top of the Google search results page, that's a commercial ad auction. So if you have a commercial account, then you compete against other commercial advertisers, and if your ad rank is high enough, then your ad might serve as a very first ad, which gives you the highest visibility and the highest likelihood that people will actually click on the ad. Only when they click on the ad, that's when certain amount that's again determined in the auction, that's the amount that gets deducted from your credit, okay? And that person lands on your page. If you are an ad grantee, you do not compete with commercial advertisers. You only compete against other ad grantees, and you compete against them in a separate grant auction that's placed underneath the commercial auction. So in other words, only the ad sold that are not sold to any commercial advertisers, only those are offered to ad grantees. What might happen is, and I have a situation like that in here. This is just an example. I know this is probably a little bit small. You can maybe, if you hover over the presentation, you can, in the right hand side, there's a little icon for a full screen. You can maybe expand it. You'll see a little bit better. But this is what the search results look like these days. So on the top, in this case, there are 4 sponsored results on the top. Then there's position 1, and that's the first unpaid position. And then there's AI overview, which is AI generated answer to your question essentially. And then you have 3 more organic non-paid positions, and then you have sponsored results on the bottom. And oftentimes there's a situation that all these 4 top positions are occupied by commercial advertisers, right? If there are 4 or more advertisers bidding on the keyword, um, I don't know, volunteer in New York, this is very attractive. There might be many nonprofits that use commercial accounts to bid on this keyword, and they occupy the whole top section of the Google search results page. And you, as an ad grantee, all you may be left with is the auction in the red frame, which is the auction on the very bottom of the Google search results page, where not that many people scroll, right? So, and to make it even worse is that even if people do not scroll all the way, but if your ad loads on the bottom, that's an ad impression. Ad impression is tracked even if your ad isn't in the visible part of the screen. But obviously, if people don't scroll all the way down, there's no way they'll click on the ad. So you will record an impression, but you will never record a click, which means that your click-through rate will be low. And if your click-through rate is less than 5%, well, that's against compliance requirements, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that for Google Ad Grantees, getting into those first positions might be impossible for some keywords. If those keywords are too competitive, if there are many commercial advertisers, even the worst commercial advertiser will take priority over the best grant advertiser. Yes, you can boost your bids, you can boost your quality scores. That way you will be the first one in the grant auction. But if the grant auction serves on the bottom of the page, or in some cases it doesn't serve at all, simply because the keyword is just too competitive, then you just cannot get the impressions and you cannot get the clicks. That's why if you run the same keyword in grant and commercial account, you will always see much more impressions and clicks from that commercial ad because it just ranks better. Okay, so it is very important to understand. Now, what are the consequences for grant advertisers? Well, yes, I mentioned this a few times and I'll mention it again. Commercial advertisers always take priority. There's no way for you as an ad grantee to overcome a commercial advertiser. Also, what I should mention is Google never shows 2 ads at the same time that would go to one domain, right? So if you end up having a grant and commercial account, and if you bid for the same keyword, Google will always show the commercial ad, right? Because it's just more attractive to Google. You pay to Google, they will always show that one. So that's why you need to be very clever about which keywords you keep in the grant account. And those will be the keywords that are not extremely competitive. And again, I'll talk about it later. And then there's a commercial account which you should use to go after those keywords that are just out of reach for you as an ad grantee. Okay. What else do we have here? CPC prices are higher. I will show you a comparison. Ad impressions are limited, especially on competitive keywords if you're an ad grantee, and the ramp up time is longer because you get those more inferior placements. You will not get as many clicks. The algorithms will take longer to accumulate enough conversion data to optimize properly. Okay, that's why the ramp up time is longer in grant accounts. What are some of the tips? What can be? I do not want to sound overly pessimistic. AdGrant is a great product. It's a free product, and the budget is vast. But you need to understand how it works and when it is efficient and when it isn't efficient. And what can be done for you to maximize Google AdGrants? Well, these are some of the tips. So my suggestion is to use the grant to focus on keywords with lower level of competition, but with sufficient search volume. It doesn't make sense to go after keywords that are extremely niche, long tail, 5-word keywords, if nobody searches for them, or if it has 20 searches per month. It doesn't make sense. You need to find keywords that are still relevant for your organization, but also that are searched often, and ideally add those that do not have very high competition. And I'll show you how to do that also during the demo today. You need to implement conversion tracking. Okay, bid is controlled with automated bidding algorithms in AdGrants accounts, and these algorithms only work well if they have enough conversion data. So if you create a new AdGrants account and you do not configure conversion tracking, these algorithms will have never enough data for these campaigns to even ramp up. Okay, so it is a big mistake. Surprisingly, a large percentage of nonprofits do not have proper conversion tracking in place, and then they wonder why their AdGrants accounts do not work well, and this is a very common reason. Our suggestion is to start with broad keyword array. Okay, so in grant accounts, again, you can test, you can experiment. So our suggestion is to start broad, use hundreds, maybe thousands of keywords, everything related to what you do as an organization. Have conversion tracking in place, validate which keywords work, which keywords uh, bring you the traffic, and ideally quality traffic, which is measured by conversions, and then focus on that. Make sure that your quality scores are high for those keywords. Make sure your ad relevancy is high. Make sure that you bid the maximum, right? So try where you can get traction as an ad grantee and focus on that segment. In commercial accounts, it's a different game. In commercial accounts, it's your money, so you cannot use 5,000 keywords that would burn a lot of cash. So in commercial accounts, you need to use a different approach. Start small, focus on what you know works, which could be keywords, for instance, that works for you in the grant account. Start small, start with small bids, cautious budgets, have conversion tracking in place, see what works, and then scale it from there. Try different variations, lose up the bids a little bit, maybe try different bidding algorithms, right? So start small and grow it. That's what you should do in commercial accounts. In grant accounts, you should start broad, use it, generate data, and then narrow it down, focus on where you can see potential. And maximizing quality scores. This is a very important thing. Again, bids are controlled by Google's algorithm, so you do not have much influence over that. But you can influence quality score, and if you boost up your quality scores, your ad rank will go automatically up, and with higher ad rank, your position within that grant auction will also go up, which will give you more visibility and more clicks. All right. When to use commercial campaigns? I've already mentioned some maybe instances or some scenarios where it is efficient, but I would like to talk about that a little more now. So commercial Google Ads. I've mentioned this a few times. Those of you who are not familiar, what this is, well, it's a standard commercial version of Google Ads that any commercial advertiser uses, retailers, car dealers, everybody who has a commercial for-profit company and wants to obviously advertise within Google search, they all use commercial Google Ads accounts. Um, the interface looks exactly the same. Obviously, the big difference is that the very first step is to enter a payment method, which could be a credit card, it could be invoice, whatever that is. But obviously, because it's a commercial product, you need to pay to Google every time somebody clicks on your ad. All formats are allowed, so you can choose what kind of campaign you want to run. Different marketing goals require different set of campaigns, and here in the commercial account, you can choose which works the best. And you can use all targeting options, so you can use retargeting, you can use demographic targeting, interest-based targeting, keyword targeting, whatever you want. There are some rules, but they're only standard rules, right? So Google has policies around, what the ads should look like and things like that. There's still an approval process for ads, but it's relatively simple, and most companies do not face any difficulties here. So there are no compliance requirements. Google doesn't prescribe minimum performance structure of campaigns, anything like that. It's all up to you. Prominent ad placements is important. As a commercial advertiser, you will take place within that auction that's priced prominently on the top of Google search results page. If you bid enough and if your quality scores are high enough, you can be number one, which is great. Also, cost per click is lower. You compete against other commercial advertisers, and the price is determined in that auction, right? But again, those other advertisers, they will only bid so much that it still makes sense for them financially, right? In ad grants auction, it's nobody's money essentially, so everybody needs to use maximize conversions bidding, so the price just goes up and up and up, right? In commercial accounts, you pay your own money, and typically the cost per click price is much lower. But obviously, a big disadvantage is that you pay for every click. So if you want to experiment, if you're not sure what works, if you try different things, it can be costly. Okay. And here's just an example. There's one of our clients. They're a nonprofit organization, and they've been also using commercial ads. And so you can see some of the banners that they ran. Again, you can use different formats. You can use YouTube, uh, and everything that Google has to offer. The big advantage here is that these formats are visual. So if your organization wants to convey some visual message, if you have a visually strong campaign, it's difficult to do just through text ads, right? In such cases, this is much better. That's why you can sort of convey the message better. You can um, you know you can create emotions within the audience and things like that, which are difficult to do just with text. And here's the comparison, right? So I mentioned multiple times that cost per click price might be a little bit, or not actually a little bit, but it can be significantly lower in commercial accounts than this in grant accounts. And to give you some more concrete example, I've looked at the data, and these are actual two accounts of one of our clients. Again, it's a US-based nonprofit. They have a grant account and they have a commercial account, and they run similar search campaigns in both. I mean, they don't go after the same keywords, but in terms of targeting, they're fairly similar. And these are the prices during 1 year, right? So same period, similar campaigns, same organization. And you can see that cost per click in grant accounts, they vary from $4 to $8. Okay, and in the commercial account, it's between 60 cents and $1.5 a click. Okay, so the difference could be easily 3, 4, even more times, right? And it generally speaking, grant is always more expensive. We have some accounts that focus on fundraising keywords or volunteer recruitment keywords, and their CPCs and grant accounts are $15, $20. It's not uncommon to see something like this. In commercial accounts, if you run the very same campaign, you'll probably see CPCs between $1 to $2. Okay, so that's how big the difference can be. All right, and when we talk about conversions, coming back to this example, this environmental organization called Galapagos Conservation, when we design their Google AdWords campaigns, we design them around 3 conversion stages. Okay, their main goal is obviously fundraising, but fundraising is something that doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't work in a way that people click on the ad and land on your page immediately and then they convert, right? And they give it away, take out the credit card and donate. That's not how it works. It takes consideration. People need to build up some sort of relationship with the organization. It needs to be timed properly, and there are many more things to look at. And by the way, we have a webinar specifically about fundraising, which we ran in November, I believe, last year. It's available on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested more in this, you can go in there and check it out. But coming back to this, typically there are 3 stages. The first one is about educating people. So letting people know that you exist, bringing them for the first time to your website. They'll get familiar with your content. They might sign up for your newsletter, or they might click on social media icon and start following you, right? Then there's a second stage where you create relationship, right? Where people come back multiple times. They already know your brand, so they might come back through your brand keyword. And that's when they start consuming the content. That's when they start liking you, sort of. And then there's a conversion with a financial value, right? And to do that, the people need to know you. They need to have that kind of relationship with you. And then at this stage, you might also need to use commercial accounts or other ways to bring them back a few times, and that's when you can expect a financial conversion. And here's a chart, and this is actually a chart from Google. I like using it because it demonstrates the story from the awareness phase through relationship building phase, which is in the middle, all the way towards financial donation stage, if in this particular case. And in this red stage, you can see on the bottom, there's Google AdWords plus paid search. Okay, that's what Google suggests. So Google suggests using AdWords during this initial phase, and you can back it up if you have budget. You can back it up with commercial campaign where you go after those more competitive keywords related to your cause. And then you have a middle phase where again Google suggests using AdWords, in combination with paid search, and that paid search would be more targeted towards more specific more specific keywords. And it doesn't have to be paid search; it can also be banner campaigns. Something that conveys your message, something that brings those people back and create their relationship with people. On the third stage, as you can see here, and again, this is a slide from Google. Google doesn't even suggest using anagrams. And the reason is simple. Google knows that using anagrams to um, to generate financial donations is very difficult because those keywords are occupied by commercial advertisers. So Google suggests using paid ads, especially retargeting, right? So bringing people back, you need to give them this extra push, extra motivation, which could be um, donation doubling, which could be time limited, something, Giving Tuesday, holidays, etc. So you should give them the reason and say now is a good time. Please come back and support our organization. You can upload your email list, build up, you know, audiences from different sources, and commercial advertising is very efficient here, right? So when organization expects that, okay, now we're approved for ad grants, let's just create campaigns and generate donations next month. Well, it's very likely not going to happen because the process is complex. It involves, as you can see here, multiple channels, or it should involve multiple channels. It takes some time. And at the very end, if you do not use commercial campaigns, the success rate will be fairly limited because ad grants is just not powerful on its own. It's not powerful enough to push the message all the way through. Yes, you will get donations, and we have clients, especially those ones with stronger brands, that get decent donation conversion results out of Google Ad Grants. It is possible, but for small organizations without brand recognition, it definitely takes more than just the ad grants. Okay, and here's again uh, a an illustration of what it takes. When we look at those three stages, we looked at examples of our clients, and we looked at what are the most efficient commercial campaigns that you can utilize on each of these stages, conversion stages. And during this educational stage, display and video campaigns are the most efficient. They're cheap. They're cheap in terms of cost per. Just to give you some numbers in terms of cost per click, a display prospecting campaigns in the US, they may cost as little as 10 to 15 cents a click. And when we talk about YouTube campaigns pre-roll videos, those video ads that serve within YouTube, you can get a cost per view of 1 to 2 cents, right? So they could be fairly inexpensive, and that way you can quickly build up large audience. You can educate people about your cause. The problem is that the cost per conversion is typically high because these are not warm audiences. These people do not know you, and the likelihood that they'll click on the ad on YouTube and then donate or do something like that, that's very slim. Because of that, cost per conversion is high, and only if you have large budgets and only if you want to boost your brand, that's when we suggest doing this. If your budgets are smaller and if you're very cautious about cost per conversion, this is probably not the best way forward. The middle stage, the stage where you create a relationship with your visitor, the ideal format within commercial accounts are search campaigns focused on relevant keywords. And I put in tested keywords. By tested keywords, I mean keywords that worked well in your grant account. Then you can carry them over into the commercial account. And in commercial accounts, you can get lower cost per click, and you can get more exposure for these keywords. And because you already know that they've performed well in the grant account, they will very likely also convert well in the commercial account, but you'll get more clicks because of the priority placement within the auction, right? So the cost per conversion in this strategy is, let's say, middle. And the strategy that typically has the lowest cost per conversion, which is what you want, obviously, is display retargeting campaign. So showing banners to people who visited your page in the past or who are members of your email databases, etc. And you should use aggressive bidding. You should go after them fairly aggressively. You should show them the banner. I mean, you should not show them the banners like 100 times a day. You should cap it at like 10 impressions a day or something like that. But we see this consistently. Display retargeting tends to be the most ROI efficient strategy, especially if you have small budgets. So when we get approached by a client who wants to, let's say, run a fundraising campaign, our suggestion is to start off using the grant, generate attraction, build up retargeting audiences, because you can't go after 100 people, right? The audiences need to be sizable. There needs to be at least a few hundred people in them. So use a grant to build this audience, and then use a smart uh, banner retargeting campaign to retarget to these people. When they come back a few more times, then the likelihood that they'll convert is the highest. So at the end of the day, the cost per conversion will be fairly low, and you'll get the conversions you want. Now, the strategy, and this is not the end. These are just some tips related to how to structure this. So my suggestion is to plan it, right? Plan which keywords to run where, plan which campaign type is the most ideal for this scenario, um, build up these audiences. That's also something that needs to be planned. Plan, ad copies, which ad copies to run where, etc. You should communicate through stories. There should be one consistent story, which is in the text ads within the Google Ad Grants account. With the same story should be conveyed through images and videos in the commercial account, and the same thing should be on the landing page, right? Use ad grants to the maximum possible extent. Again, it's free money, so you should maximize that as much as you can, and that you can do that via bidding optimization, broad reach, conversion tracking, high quality scores, all those things. You should invest your money where it makes sense, right? Against, or nonprofits in general, they typically have smaller budgets, and they try to be as efficient as possible. So ad grants should be the starting point, maximize it, and then start off by using smaller targeting campaigns and then build it up. Okay. Measure your success. Use Google Analytics, conversion tracking. Start small on the commercial side. Start with smaller campaigns, those that are expected to generate the highest ROI, and then scale it up from there. Okay. Do you need a commercial account? Okay, and these are some common scenarios. If you run a short-term campaign, and this is a common scenario for our clients, if they organize an event and they come to us and they say, we have an event, we have a conference coming up in 2 weeks, we need to increase the attendance. What do we do about it? All right, and we always say, look, a new ad grants campaign may easily take 2 to 3 months to ramp up. Plus, there needs to be enough people searching for keywords related to the conference. And if that's a niche topic and which requires in-person attendance in one city, yeah, right? There's only a certain number of people looking for that at that time in this location. And as an ad grantee, will not be able to ramp it up too much within the 2-week period. So in such scenario, commercial campaign is a much better option. We can use banner retargeting. We can also go after those people who do not actively search it. We can go after retargeting audiences, people who already know you, people who visited past conferences, etc. So it's much better. Okay, so if you have something like this, commercial is a way to go. If you focus on financial goals, if that's your number one priority, if you want to run a successful financial campaigns with strong financial return, commercial campaigns are almost a must, right? So ad grants, it can give you those indirect benefits, it can qualify people, it can help you build up retargeting audiences, but the very last step almost always needs to be done via commercial campaigns. So also running a sound fundraising campaign without commercial component, very difficult. So in such scenarios, you should definitely consider using commercial campaign. If you are in a very competitive vertical, all right, so I mentioned volunteer recruitment. So you can imagine there are thousands of nonprofits looking for volunteers. Such keywords are competitive. Many nonprofits have commercial accounts bidding on them. So as an ad grantee, you will not be able to get too much success just with an ad grants account. So in such scenarios, you need to use commercial as well. If you expect immediate results, again, I mentioned this a few times, it takes at least 2 to 3 months for ad grants campaigns to ramp up. So if you expect an overnight success, if you want to have 1,000 clicks tomorrow, it's not going to happen as an ad grantee. Right? You need to use a commercial account. If you use broad enough targeting, that can happen. If your cause is very visual, right? So again, if your website's visual, if you have some emotional videos and things like that to support your cause, that's difficult to convey just through text ads. So again, you need to use commercial. And if you want to be on position number one, and we have some clients that come to us and say, look, on this particular keyword, I need to be number one. I want to make sure that my brand is out there. Well, again, if there are commercial advertisers that bid on that keyword, and it happens, there's brand bidding, branding on competitive brands or competitors. It happens all the time. So oftentimes you're not number one in your own brand, but as an ad grantee, will not be able to outbid this commercial advertiser. So if that's your goal, you need to use commercial. Your quality score for that keyword will be very high. So you do not need to bid too much to outbid that other company, and then that's the way to secure the first position. Okay, when commercial account is not necessary, if your targeting is broad, if you focus on top of funnel conversions, so if your goal is to to generate traffic, if your goal is to generate newsletter subscriptions, video views on your website, things like that, that's relatively easily achievable within Google Ads. Okay, if you have the time for the ramp up, if time is not a problem, Ads is a long-term activity. So yes, it takes some time to ramp up, but then it can run long-term for years. It's a stable source of traffic. In commercial accounts, if you stop paying after 2-3 months, well, the moment you stop paying, your ad stops serving, you don't have the traffic. In Google Ads campaigns, once you build it up, you keep getting the traffic for potentially years to come. Okay, so if you have enough time, if you run such so-called evergreen campaigns, Google Ads is ideal. And I'm not saying you should do either or. You can obviously combine it. Okay. FAQs. So when people consider our clients, when they consider commercial campaigns, these are the questions that we typically get. They ask us, how much do I need to invest? And we usually say, well, $300 per month, that should be sort of a starting point, right? It doesn't make sense to run a commercial campaign with a $5 daily budget, for instance, because we'll just not get enough clicks out of this. We'll not get enough conversions. You will probably not gonna be happy. Will not accumulate enough data for these, bidding algorithms to work efficiently. Will not be able to do data-driven optimization. The amount of time we need to put in to set this up, it's not, it doesn't increase with the budget so much. So even if we create a small campaign, we still need to invest the time. So it doesn't make sense, right? If you have at least three to $500 per month, that's when it starts making sense. That's when we have enough data so we can drive meaningful results. That's when our time pays off. Okay. So that's that. Evaluation. Yes. When you think about, okay, am I gonna do commercial or not? People compare this somehow, or they're trying to compare. So we always say, look, when you run a commercial campaign, your fees are the media fees that you pay to Google, and then management fee if you hire us. If you run a grant campaign, there's no media fee. The only fee that you pay is the management fee, right, which is typically lower. So and then you have different results. Obviously, commercial will perform better, but you have higher cost. So you should look at it like this. You should look at the complete costs in each alternative divided by the results you can get, and that's the number that you should compare. Now, what is needed? They ask us, okay, if we're going to run a commercial campaign, what do we need to provide? So obviously, there's the visual assets. So we can either get them from your website or you need to provide them. And conversion tracking, that's a must. We do not run commercial campaigns without conversion tracking, right? Because that way, without conversion tracking, we will not be able to say if it works well or not, and you will not be able to justify that investment. So it is a must. You need to have obviously media budget. Ramp up time in commercial accounts, that's very quick. Well, we're talking days, right? So usually within a day, the ad gets approved, and then within the next few hours, it starts getting traction. So it's very quick. How to start? Well, if you have a grant account and you want to start with commercial account, our suggested starting point is keyword evaluation. And I'll show you in a minute how to do that. And then financials, right? So when you create a new commercial account, there's this first step, which is entering your credit card. And that's something you need to do. The good news is we are a premier partner, which means that if we create a new commercial account for you, we can give you promo credits. And it's tiered in the US. I think the smallest tier is $500. So if you invest first $500 in a commercial account, Google will match it and they will give you $500 towards your future campaigns, and they're larger tiers as well. So that's a way to incentivize organizations to jump on and to try commercial. So if you're interested in that, let us know. We can apply those credits in your accounts. The keyword evaluation. So let's say in a scenario where you have an existing commercial, or sorry, when you have an existing grant account, you've seen this presentation and you start thinking, okay, what if we tried commercial? Well, the good starting point is to evaluate the keywords. Generally speaking, the keywords that you should keep in the grant account are keywords with low cost per click. If a keyword has low cost per click, even in a grant account, that usually means that these are keywords with low level of competition, and that usually means that you can get decent amount of traffic from the grant. If you have a high number of ad impressions, again, high number of ad impressions, that's an indication that the keyword is probably not very competitive and it is searched often, and you want to have keywords like that in the grant account. If you have high CTR, click-through rate, if your click-through rate is high for a keyword, that means that the ad serves on high positions, which again means that the keyword is probably not very competitive, and you can keep it in the grant account. A lower relevancy, and this may sound weird, but keywords, you have the budget, which is $10,000, and most advertisers struggle with using the grant fully. So in grant accounts, you can keep there even keywords that are not 100% relevant, but you have the budget, and you do not pay for it if you don't get a click from a little bit less relevant keyword, you'll not get the click at all. And even clicks from keywords like that might turn into conversions, right? But obviously, you don't want to have less relevant keywords in the commercial account, right? So such keywords should stay in the grant account. And then brand, and this, again, we have some advertisers, some clients that want to be number one on their brand, which again can only be achieved via commercial. But we have some that do not have very competitive brands, and oftentimes it's sufficient to bid on their own brand in the grant account. Okay. Keywords that should be moved into the commercial account are keywords that perform very well in terms of conversion rates, but have low impression share. Impression share basically means that out of all impressions, which are essentially number of times when people search for the keyword, how many of those times your ad appears either on the very top or within the top part of Google search results. Okay, and if this number is low, usually that's an indication that the keyword is just too competitive. Your ad doesn't appear anywhere close to the top. But if that keyword has high conversion rate, that means that, okay, if people ends up clicking on the ad somehow, if they find it all the way at the bottom, if they click and land on your page, they will convert. So you want to have that keyword in there, but you should be on the top. And the way to get there is via commercial account. Okay, and I'll show you on the next step in a demo. I'll show you how to do such evaluation. So hopefully you can see my screen now. This is the account I've talked about. And let's say you've had an account like this for years. This is an old account. There's years of history, and that's good. The more history you have, the better for you. I intentionally chose a long time period, 3 years, and I chose a historical dates because I do not want to show you their current campaign performance. And that's not that I wouldn't want to, but I shouldn't because it's their data. So anyways, when you have an account like this, my suggestion is to start off by selecting long keyword period. Then you can go in here into campaigns and you can go to search terms. Search terms are the terms that people actually put in when your ad served. Okay. And then you'll see a number of keywords here, and then you should filter it. Over here, what I did is that I've applied 3 filters. The first filter is where I said that I only want to look at keywords that have Galapagos, that's the island they work on. I only want to see keywords with that string in it because these are the keywords. These are the relevant keywords, right? We only want to go after people who have interest in this island, right? So that's one filter that I've applied. Then another filter that I applied is number of interactions, which should be at least 10. In this case, these interactions are clicks, okay, because they're search campaigns. The reason why I apply this filter is because there's number of, there's thousands of keywords and it's impossible to review them manually. And if a keyword has 5 clicks in 3 years, and out of that we have, even if we had 5 conversions, well, it's not statistically relevant, right? So we only want to look at keywords with a certain number of clicks. That's the second filter I apply, and the third filter I apply is conversions greater than 1, because if a keyword has 0 conversions, obviously again there's no way for us to evaluate it. So now I have these 3 filters in place. I have the keywords here. And now this is a granny count, right? My ultimate objective is to get as many conversions as possible out of this, right? So in other words, I want to look at the keywords with high conversion rate, but keywords where I could potentially get more if these keywords ran in a commercial account. And now, what to do about it? Well, you can add this column here. Okay, if you go to columns, modify columns, you can add a column named impressions, and this impressions absolute top, which is the percentage of cases when our ads on that search term appeared as an absolute top result. Okay, and what I want to do here is to look at the keywords where we were not number one, but where our conversion rate has been high, right? So when we order the keywords by conversion rate, these are the search terms with the highest conversion rate historically. And when we look at the impressions share here, you may notice that yes, there are some keywords like, for instance, this one, right? But this is their brand keyword, right? And brand, like I said, that's not what we want to focus on right now. But we have some keywords like this, for instance, 33%. So, and it's fairly generic keyword, Galapagos Islands. So it's probably too generic for a commercial account. So let's look further. For instance, this one. And that's a keyword. That's a more specific keyword, Galapagos tortoise facts, and that's what they do, right? They do animal protection on the island of Galapagos. So we have the animal element here. We have the location element here. So these probably searched by people who have genuine interest into protecting wildlife and animals on this island. So that's a good keyword in terms of relevancy. In 79% of cases, it's been we're on the first position, which is relatively high, but we can definitely gain something by going to 100%. And our conversion rate has been 16%, which is very decent. So a keyword like this, for instance, would be a good keyword to look at, right? And you can export this into an Excel sheet. You can even obviously you can use Ads Advisor, which is, by the way, a new tool which you can use to generate different types of reports. So there are different ways of looking at this, but for sake of simplicity, I'm just showing you how to quickly build a filter like this. And then you should, like I said, focus on keywords with a high conversion rate but low impression share. That these are the good candidates to move into the commercial account. Once you find keywords like this, my suggestion is to then go into this section, Tools, Planning, Keyword Planner. When you do that, it will take you to a tool that looks like this. Those keywords that you've liked or that you've selected, you can throw them in here. You can add multiple. And when you click on Get Results, then Google shows you suggestions, right? So keywords similar to that, which you can use when building up your commercial campaigns. And not just that, when you scroll down, you can see much more. So for that keyword, you can see how many monthly searches you have in your specified region, which is English language in the United States. You can also see traffic trends. You can see if it's growing, by how much year over year, etc. And very importantly, you can see the level of competition, right? And you can even see some bid suggestions. These are usually not very precise, but it's an indication. This is what I look at usually. So, and what you should do now is to look at keywords similar to that, which these are some of these suggestions are very good, and keywords with high number of monthly searches, ideally also growing number of searches, but low level of competition, right? And these are good candidates. So from here, and again, you can click on this icon here. You can export it into an Excel sheet. Usually, okay, over here we have 74, so you can even review it over here. But sometimes it suggests hundreds or thousands of keywords, and then you should export it. And then, like I said, focus on those ones that are relevant. They have high search volume, and that are not very competitive. And those very likely will be good candidates because, again, from the past performance, the keywords like that tend to convert well. But as an agent, you just cannot get that extra traffic, and you'll get the traffic by moving it into a commercial account. And then to avoid internal competition, you can go one step further, and in the grant account, you can negative match these keywords, right? Or you can do vice versa, right? And if you see that your commercial campaign generates impressions from keywords that are not 100% relevant, you can negative match them in the commercial account and only run them in the grant account. So there's not a clear distinction, but this is what we typically do when evaluating which keywords to move into the commercial account. And that should just be the starting point. You should have conversion tracking in place, and then based on conversion performance, that's what you use to optimize your campaigns moving forward. Okay, and I'll go back in here. So, all right, conversions. And now just very quickly because we don't have too much time. And again, it's a broad topic. Just for your understanding, I kept saying conversions back and forth. So what I mean by conversions, what are actions made by your visitor on the website? Could be things like volunteer signups, donations, video plays, etc. And it's up to you how you define them. We typically use Google Analytics to track conversions. Google Analytics has a native integration with Google Ads. So when you create these conversion actions within Google Analytics, you can easily import them into Google Ads. The problem here is that if you want to track more specific conversion actions like clicks on certain buttons or form submissions, events like that are not tracked in Google Analytics by default, right? So you need to use Google Tag Manager, preferably as a tool where you define these conversion actions. So in Google Tag Manager, you basically say, if somebody clicks on this button, send this information as an event into Google Analytics, and then from Google Analytics, that information gets transmitted into Google Ads. Okay, but it's something that needs to be set up, and it needs to be set up by somebody with access to your website, which is your web admin. Usually, this is an example of our client. As you can see here, all of these are conversion actions that we track. So if somebody clicks on social media icons, if somebody clicks on the donation button, if somebody subscribes, etc., all these are conversion actions. We've configured them within Google Tag Manager, and now this is a screenshot from the Google Ads account. So you can see very specific conversion actions being tracked there, and that's then the ultimate data point that we use to evaluate which campaigns and which keywords work. Okay, and it's very important to do before you run a commercial campaign, because if you spend your own money on this, you want to make sure you get something in return, and what you get are these conversions. You can go one step further. You can even give different values to these conversions, and then you can calculate the actual ROI, which is ideal. All right, and this is the last part of the presentation, which is a case study. And we prepared a case study with WaterAid. We work with the American office, and it's a long-term cooperation. For those of you who are not familiar with WaterAid, they are an international nonprofit, and what this American office basically does is that they, in the U.S., they run fundraising programs, and they use this money to build wells and bring water to rural communities, mostly in Africa, but also in other places in the world. So that's what I do, and they have an ad grants account. They've had it for years. They max it out consistently, and then in certain periods of the year, they also run commercial campaigns, and that's what helps them drive incremental traffic and mostly fundraising, donation conversions. And And we've been working with them since 2018. And actually, just a few months before we kicked our collaboration off, and Google changed those compliance requirements. They've introduced stricter compliance requirements in early 2018, and that sort of hit them quite a bit. Their grant account hasn't been performing ever since very well. They had a lot of low quality keywords with low relevancy, so low quality scores. Google started to filter them out. Because of that, their clicks dropped by more than 82% during a short period of time, and the grant utilization fell below 1,000 per month, right? And not just that, but their existing campaigns, they were non-compliant suddenly because of those new requirements. And they also had a commercial account, but the conversion tracking hasn't been configured properly, and they were not sure if it is performing or not, etc. So that was the situation. Off of that, after the initial discussion, we defined a set of marketing goals, which the first goal was to audit what they have and make sure that they are compliant. Then, because they've had existing accounts with a lot of data in it, so that's why we decided to do keyword evaluation, see what's worked in the past, and decide what stays in the grant and what goes into commercial, etc. Now, obviously, the goal was to increase the website traffic, fix conversion tracking, boost their brand awareness, develop new report. We introduced Google Looker Studio interactive reports, which I didn't have before. And then the goal was to run end of year fundraising campaign on all channels, including grant and commercial. Here's just a chart showing the drop in their performance. You can see it starts in October 2017 when they've been getting around 4 to 4.5 thousand clicks per month, and it's gone down to maybe 100 clicks in May 2018. It's quite a severe drop, and again, it's caused by those new compliance requirements that were introduced around this period. What kind of changes or what kind of actions we took in the grant account? Well, because they've had data there, we saw the best working ads, we saw the best working keywords. We knew what to focus on, and we focused on expanding it, adding variations of that, increasing relevancy of the ads, updating some of the campaign elements and things like that. And then focusing on compliance, so restructuring the ads, fixing conversion tracking, increasing the CTR, making sure that they are compliant. And then so those were the immediate steps. And the next step was to build new campaigns. So we talked about their priorities. We did the keyword research, and then created a set of new campaigns next to updated existing campaigns. Then conversion tracking, that's something that we focused on as well. They're a big organizations. They have their own analytics team. We worked on them on defining conversions, setting it up in a compliant way, and then optimizing campaigns. So trying to expand it, increasing the grant utilization, increasing the traffic and conversion volume. That's what we did in the grant account. What we did in the commercial account, well, like I said, after that initial keyword evaluation, we decided on moving some of the keywords into the commercial account, and also on moving some of those keywords from the commercial account into grant account. So those keywords that were not very competitive, brand keywords, etc. There's a number of keywords that they just literally wasted their money on. So we said, look, let's move it into the grant account. Let's see if it performs there. If it does, great, we keep it in there. If not, we can always bring it back, right? And when we saw that, for instance, the brand keywords, they did very well also in the grant account, right? So that way they saved some commercial budget, and we used that on keywords that worked well in the grant account, but they just didn't have that many impressions, right? Value-based conversion tracking, that's all we also introduced because their budgets were quite significant, and they wanted to make sure that the donation amount exceeds what they invest in it. And to do that, we had to implement value-based conversion tracking. We also introduced tiered retargeting audiences. So their approach to retargeting is a little bit more complex. So they didn't just go after anybody who visited their website, but they had one audience of everybody who visited their website. They had another audience of people who just who started the donation process but didn't finish it. Then they had an audience of people who signed up for their newsletter, etc. So they had different audiences and they applied different bidding and different approaches, different messaging to go after each audience. And yeah, we also refreshed their creatives. So those were some of the things we did in the commercial account. Um, Here's in a nutshell, right, what it looks like. So we've created prospecting campaigns, search, display, and video, and focus search. People who already know them, and this is where we put those um, highly lucrative keywords. And then there's retargeting, right? Display campaign that would serve ads to people repeatedly, especially to those who started the donation process but haven't finished it, right? So having a pyramid like this, that's what helps you push people down the funnel all the way to the ultimate action, which is um, donation conversion. Here's just an example of some of their ads. These are the ads that we created for their grant campaign. Again, these are all search campaigns. There's no visuals, it's just text. But we looked at it from different angles. So you can see for your targeting audiences, each one has its own um, ad copy that sort of talks to that specific audience. And these are some of the visual ads, some of the banners that we've created for them. Again, you can see mostly images of people in Africa, people who they impact somehow with their work. And then analytics setup. And they had quite complex uh, tracking system where we basically added a tracking parameter. We added a tracking parameter to every URL, and Google Analytics then picks up these tracking parameters, and that's what they use to attribute conversions to different campaigns. It's a bit more complex, but again, we have a webinar about Google Analytics. So if you're interested in this more, I recommend watching that. And these are the results that they've seen after 2 months. These are the results of the fundraising campaign that they ran during the holiday period. The number of ad impressions increased substantially, mostly because, again, we had those display campaigns, retargeting campaigns. Those are campaign tabs that generate a lot of impressions. So more than 2 million ad impressions in 2 months. That resulted in roughly 42,000 website visits. And the tracked conversion value, because they had value-based conversion tracking in place, we were able to track and attribute those conversions precisely. And they've generated more than 50K in terms of donations from this commercial campaign that lasted for 2 months. And the ROI on that, which was the ultimate metric, was roughly 140%. Okay. And you can also see a chart, and you can clearly see that the best days for conversion value were actually the last days of a year. Okay, because that's also when people think about ways to optimize their tax duty, etc. So they've seen a lot of conversions coming in towards the very end of the year. All right, and that's it. I know time is up, so I'll just quickly talk about this. Um, you know, how can we help you here? Well, we focus on Google AdGrants. All our clients have Google AdGrants. Obviously, many of them also have commercial accounts for those reasons that I've talked about earlier today. We can support you with both accounts. If you have grant, we can help you with that. If you don't have a grant, we can help you with application. If you want to try commercial campaigns, we'll be happy to do so for you. And our pricing is fair, I believe, for grant accounts. It's calculated as a percentage of used grant. For commercial accounts, we use an hourly rate, and we'll always give you an estimate upfront. So we'll first discuss the campaign scope, and then we'll tell you, okay, this is how much time we'll need for the setup. This is how much time we'll need for management. This is the rate, and if you approve it, then we'll track our time and do the work. We offer free initial audit for both grant and commercial accounts. So if you have existing accounts, we'll do that initial evaluation for free. In terms of commitment for grant accounts, we have a minimum contract period of 3 months, which is there because 3 months is the minimum ramp-up time. For commercial campaigns, we do not have any minimum commitment. So even if you want to run a short campaign for an event, we can help you. It can be a one-time thing. It's up to you. and visibility and transparency. That's crucial for us. So we will create an online dashboard for you. We'll send you updates on a monthly basis, and if you're interested in more hands-on approach, we can also give you training. We can take some time and look at the campaign performance together, etc. And last but not least, we have close relationship with Google. So if you experience problems with ad approvals or ad grants approval or compliance policies or things like that, we can help you. If needed, we can also engage the Google Ad Grants team, which is the most knowledgeable on these things. And last but not least, we are a premier partner, so we can also give you those promo credits if you'll decide to try the commercial account for the first time. These promo credits are only available to new advertisers. That's something that I mentioned. All right, and here's just a quick summary. So, what the message that I wanted to convey to you today is this. This is the distilled message of today's webinar. So, you should understand that Google Ads is an ideal entrance point into the world of online marketing. It's free. You can experiment. The budget is vast, and it can generate decent number of traffic, stable traffic, and it can also be a stable source of conversions, right? Um, it has a lot of benefits, but it also has limitations. It's just search and PMAX. Um, you cannot outbid commercial advertisers. You're limited to certain formats, there are compliance requirements, etc. Those are things you should know of. If you can, go around them, you can be very successful with ad grants. But again, for some scenarios, commercial is just better, right? If you go after very competitive keywords, if you're on a short-term campaign, etc., etc. In cases like that, you should also employ commercial, but you should employ it in a smart combination. So what can run in the grant account, keep it in there. What's too competitive, what's too expensive, but worth trying, move that into the commercial account. Use formats, campaign formats that are expected to have high ROI, such as display retargeting, and be smart. Start with smaller budgets, expand it from there based on the data. Have conversion tracking in place. Um, Monitor performance, test things, and focus on cost per conversion. Make sure that that's as low as possible. Okay. Those are the key things. Let's take a look at the chat window. All right. It doesn't seem that we have any questions. Do you have any questions now? I'll give you a few seconds. So if you want, type it in. Again, the first icon in the right hand side, that's the chat window. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and write it in there. And if you don't have any questions, and that's actually my last slide. Here's my email address. It's peter.sima@aboutdigital.com. So if you have questions after the webinar, if you would like to try commercial, or if there's anything that hasn't been clear today, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to look at your case, discuss it in more detail. And yeah, it doesn't seem that we have any questions. So I would like to thank you for your participation today. Thank you for your time. I hope you learned something new. And I wish you very success with Google Ads as well as commercial campaigns. Just one last thing, this webinar was recorded. So after the webinar, you can use this very same link to look at the recording at your own pace, and it will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Thank you again. Have a good one, and hopefully we'll see each other on the next webinar. Bye-bye.